Hello. Hello, Jennifer. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Doing okay. Having kind of a lazy Saturday. No. Good time. How's life?
Good. I'm trying to figure out how to get the camera to work because I don't usually allow my camera
Okay.
settings.
It seems like your camera is on because it like normally I can ask you to start a video, but it's saying like the option is stop video for you. Like I can turn it off. But, oh.
Are you supposed to see like a little picture of yourself at the top? Yeah, I don't see it.
I see me.
I don't see me, so my camera's not on.
Maybe like the camera is on inside of Zoom, but the webcam feature is turned off on your computer or your phone.
That's what I'm trying to turn it on, but it says.
Okay.
Okay. That's weird.
Whether or not you can get the video to work, I think we can still have an interesting chat. So I'm curious what brought interest to you into coming to the community discussion?
I just like to share, I guess, thoughts on stuff that's not, how should I say it, like gossipy or
okay.
I want to like, let's talk about something, I don't know, different. Oh,
Yeah.
so it's telling me to quit now. So let me quit now. I hope it doesn't disconnect, but let me try that.
If you do, I'll let you back in.
Now I can see it.
How's it going?
Figured it out. I mean, it's funny because I kept reading the same message over and over and over, and I get mad at people when I send emails and they don't read the email. And I'm like, oh, it said it there like if I would have just actually read the first 10 times instead of like, no, it's wrong. No, it's wrong. Like,
Okay. But yeah, I kind of am not a fan of gossip to the point where I don't really understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's good not only to talk about stuff that is, I guess, not gossip, but also to just have places where you know, like, I'm gonna go here and we're gonna talk about and not like point fingers and blame people, but try to then get somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because I've been out of school for a while, so I decided to go back to Mount SAC and
Okay.
take what is it? Interpersonal communication course, right? So I was like, oh, this is nice. I like this discussion and opening and discussing these theories. And then 2 weeks in, okay, we're going to close the school down, go online. I was like, that was the whole point, was to be able to be there. And all right, cool. But I mean, the theories are still good. I still like that it's structured and that, I mean, I could obviously read the book on my own, but when there's due dates, even though they're very flexible due dates, at least I'm more on top of it, more engaged. So.
Yeah. I was talking to a buddy of mine, Victor, about like productivity and how this situation affects your just ability to do things. And one of the things we're talking about is because he's a student in psychology right now, and he's doing online classes because he has to be at home. And he was like, I can show up to my laptop on time, but he was like, it's so hard for me to like pay attention as easily as it is in class. And then we were talking about how like when you're in class, even though like people aren't doing this on purpose, there's this kind of like peer pressure from everybody around you to pay attention and not be on your phone, and it
Mm-hmm.
helps you to pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
But like when you're at home, like I can be on my phone right now, which I am, but you like wouldn't know. So yeah, the whole like being in the space and having a space for class, having a space for working out, having a space, it's very helpful. And doing it all in your bedroom is a lot harder.
Mm-hmm. It does. Yeah, that was the other thing is for work, when we started doing Zoom, like I said, I don't allow my camera because I'm like, that's all right. I mean, I work with people. I don't really like it. I don't want you in my bedroom or in my house at all. We're not that close, So I'm sure it irks them. They haven't said anything because really they can't compel me to do it. But I'm like, no, I want you in my room. I don't want you in my house. So.
That's totally fair. Like, I mean, to an extent, you choose the company you work for, but you don't really choose the people you work with. So, okay. What do you mind asking me? Sorry, you mind if I ask you what you do?
I work in personnel services for a school district. So I'm like an analyst, basically. Well, that's my job title, is an analyst. And it's project management. It's really a lot of nagging people to do things that I already told them that I'm going to need. My job is a nag. My job is to nag people. So.
Okay. I feel like I could sympathize with that a little bit. I'm not what you would call an analyst. I'm a project engineer.
Oh.
But I know all of the technical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And if the project is having a technical issue, it doesn't matter if it's a purchasing issue or a building issue or a planning issue. If it has some technical aspect, it's almost like the train stops, and unless I get it to start again, then because I'm not a purchaser, I don't buy things. But if they're like, I don't know if it's this one or this one, they're not going to do anything, and I have to like find out, and then find out that they're not doing anything, and then like come and help them. And that can be a great use of my day.
Well, that's actually what now going to our topic, is what I kind of like about this experience. So I don't think it's all bad, is now I work in the public sector. I work for a school district. So it's a lot of, this is the way we've always done it. There's not a lot of creativity goes on. And technology to a certain degree, like they're all about social media, and we have access to Google Docs, but nobody thought like, why don't some of these forms that you've always mailed out to people, why don't we put them on the docs? So they, I mean, maybe if it needs a signature, okay, that's understandable, but there's also a way to get signatures electronically too. But just the distribution of information and getting it from people involved more creativity that I've been able to exercise up until that point. And it's funny because they're so used to, this is the way we've always done it, that it was like, well, I don't know how I'm going to get this to them. And I'm like, have we tried a Google Doc, or have we tried this? Or that's a great idea. I was like, it's really not that great of an idea. I was like, everybody else is doing it. I'm just, and I copy them. And it's like, okay, the same thing. Like the train will just, I don't know how to do it. But it's like, we can't. It's over. It's like, we can do it this way. It's the same thing. It's funny that people are just like, I don't understand. Well, this was different, or we'll get mad. It's like, no, it's just a different format. It's the exact same thing we've been doing. Just it looks different because it's on a computer versus a piece of paper. And just finding those ways and being more, I think, understanding of where people are in terms of like in their home. Okay, like some people, they don't have daycare. So their kids are there. You know, I mean, their kids are out of school. So you'll see a little kid come in during the Zoom meeting and you just have to be kind of like understanding like that. They're a parent. You know, their kids aren't in school anymore. What do they even do? And just understanding that, you know, giving that grace and understanding we're all people versus when you're at work, you separate those things. So you don't see people as people.
Yeah, they're colleagues, or they're people I work with. And even sometimes, like, I use the word friend liberally, and I'm learning not to do that as I get older, to respect the people who are my friends. But at work in particular, I don't have a problem saying like this person I work with, and like they're a very different type of person. And I don't always, I have some trouble sometimes like talking. I know there's like the small talk, build rapport thing, but sometimes I have trouble like doing non-work related things at work. Like somebody will see that like these are my keys and this is like a carabiner, and sometimes when people see this, they ask me if I'm a rock climber, and then we get into this, because yes I am, we get in this talk about being a rock climber. But sometimes I'm like, I came over here to get something done, and now you want to talk about rock climbing, which I do want to talk about, but I have a deadline. And then I'm like,
Yeah, I get that. Because, and see, I know, like when I go into work, I see people working. So I don't like to be that, hey, good morning, good morning, good morning. Because I'm like, I don't want, when I'm busy in my zone doing something, somebody scare me and say good morning because it freaks me out. And then the same thing when I'm trying to get something done and you're chatting with me, I understand that this is important to build that rapport, but I got something to do. Like, how do I cut you off and like still maintain that niceness that you're supposed to have? So yeah, I get what you mean.
And it's weird. Like I've been noticing there's this like moment that when it switches from personal to business or business to personal, it's kind of like the whole group will like tense up and then relax into the next phase. And everybody be laughing about something, and then somebody be like, oh, it's paused a little bit. Hey man, did you work on that report? And then everybody's like, oh yeah, we're at work. Work. But that's what you're saying about the tribal in my mind, this is how we've always done it. That's not what I normally do. That's not my job. Or this thing called tribal knowledge, where nobody really knows how we do it, but everybody does it a certain way. Those are kind of all in the same idea in my mind. But me as a young person, relative to the people I work with, I come in and I'm like, what about using the internet? What about emailing instead of faxing? What about like typing on stuff instead of scribbling it in pencil and then having that get all rubbed off? And they're very like, no, because we don't do it like that. But what you're saying is the idea of using this moment of change as kind of a catalyst for change, where since we have to work at home and we have to do some change, it's kind of like what's that? It's like a political term. I think it's called like pork rolling, where somebody wants a law to get in place, and so they like write this law, and the law says like something really broad, like we're gonna house all the homeless people. That's the law. Houses for homeless people. And then they have to go get it, like they got to get people to agree to vote for it. And sometimes they got to get like powerful people to agree to vote for it so they can get backing and all this kind of stuff. And I'll go to like some rich person and I'll be like, hey, I'm trying to get this law pushed. Can you support it? And they'll be like, I will support that law if you add a tax break into that law, which has nothing to do with like houses for homeless people. But over time, you talk to all these people and you try to get all this support, and the law changes and it becomes very complex, and all these hidden things are in there. But the front is still like houses for homeless people, and that's called pork rolling, when you like put all this random stuff in there in order to try and get it passed. And I feel like there may be an opportunity for that now, because there's this big change of, hey, we have to work from home, hey, we have to separate, hey, we have to actually clean our workspace. And then you can start rolling in all these other things that you wanted to, but are technically not related to the pandemic, but are still kind of like good changes, because people are in a change mood.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I was saying to somebody, that, you know, maybe people will realize, because you don't really, a lot of people won't do something until they have to, you know, and you won't think of doing it until, you know, what is it? The necessity is the mother of invention, or whatever it is. You won't do it, you know, and so now it's like, okay. And then also, I hope that teaches people who are sick, like, don't come to work. You can now work from home. Look at how easy it was, you know?
Well, because that, I think, that comes from a couple of angles, where I know, like my mom, for instance, she's like 56 and she's been a teacher for ever, like my whole life. And she has like mountains of sick days that she never uses. And I don't think she's afraid to use them, but there's nobody else uses them, so it's a bad look. It makes me look weak or lazy. Also, I'm not that sick. I can still do my job. There's like that internal pride. Like, you know, she used to always tell us, like, are your ears bleeding? No? Then you need to go to school. That was like her line. And like, well, if she's telling us to do that, she better not be, oh, I'm sad today, let me not go to school or go to work. But like, and also for me at least, I've asked to work remotely multiple times, and I've tried to be creative about it, because I always like read these books on how to like hack your life. And then like, if you can get a remote work session, then you can like go on vacation and all this kind of stuff. And companies are like opposed to that, and they always like throw these wrenches in your logic and try to like say, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that for this reason, that reason. And I don't think it's always that people are adverse to it, but sometimes people find barriers to doing it. But now it's very like, it's an easy ask right now, and it's an easy proof, because I think I've met opposition with like excuses that don't make sense, but it's my boss saying it, so I can't like override it. But now there's like definite proof that it makes no sense, because 6 people are doing that right now, and it's fine.
Yeah. I think, again, that's one of those social norms is, you know, you have to see the person at their desk. They could be freaking surfing the internet for all you know. You have no idea what they're doing at their desk, right? But you see them physically there, so you assume they must be working. It's like you're paying me to sit in front of a desk when you don't know how productive I'm being. And you can't be that productive when it's all shrunk into that 8-hour period, and you have to be. You know, I mean, it's been proven that if you take breaks and you go and you think, you take a walk, you come back, you're fresh, or you just do something else, your mind will, now that it's relaxed and it's not forcing you to think or solve that problem, you'll come up with a solution when you come back. So maybe you're not working 8 hours, but you're working maybe 6 productive hours, which is essentially what you do at work anyways, right? I mean, nobody really works the whole 8 hours. They kind of will do this, or they'll talk to somebody, they'll go here, they'll go there, because you get tired of sitting and staring.
Yeah, because everybody works in different ways. And like me, I get hyper productive and work really well for a sustained period of time, and then all my productivity crashes, and I'm like useless for a while. And that shows up at work, since I have to be there for 8 hours. Like every 3 days, I put in a good day of work, and then the other days, I am working, but it's like very slow, and I'm distracted, and I'm not feeling it because I'm kind of burnt out from what I did. And like you're saying, you don't, just because you're there doesn't mean you're working. Like I know how to hit Alt Tab really quickly and change the window that I'm looking at. And it's like a weird, like psychological or social situation that's set up that has all these assumptions that are not logical, but we all kind of buy into it because we all assume everyone else is buying into it, I guess.
Well, and it's also, it's the thing is, it's like that one story of this, I remember somebody told me, of this woman who when she makes her Thanksgiving dinner, she cuts the wings off of the turkey and puts it in the stove.
Oh,
And,
yeah, yeah.
right? And she asked and asked, okay, why did you do it? Well, because the stove was too small back in the day, but now you have a big old stove. So why are we still doing it the way you used to do it 50 years ago when it's no longer necessary? Again, back to the whole, this is the way we've always done it. But you don't even know why you used to do it. And if that reason is no longer relevant, then let's, again, create and do something different.
Yeah, that I know that story with meatloaf, but and you ask your mom because it's like a family recipe. She's like, I don't know, ask your grandma, and she's like, I don't know, ask your great grandma, and your great grandma's like, yeah, I don't know why you guys do that either. Like we just had a little less pan, so we had to do that, and you guys kept doing it. So I was like, whatever, I'm not cooking.
Yeah, yeah. But and then back to like the being sick thing. That's another thing where it's very, I don't want to look weak. You know, you can still do it, or you're worried about social censure. But now I'm hoping that it flips and it's like, it's not about you though. It's about other people that you can get sick. Then what? You know, it's like right now when they're telling you the stay-at-home order isn't necessarily about saying anything's wrong with you or that your immune system's not going to work, but you could possibly, you know, get somebody else sick. So it's about the other. So now I think a lot in the United States, we tend to be very self-centric. And now we're kind of being forced to look towards other people and take their lives into consideration and their unique situation into, you know, account versus just like, well, I don't care. It's all about me. Well, no, it's not all about you. Yeah.
That's a really good point. Like, because I feel there's like fallacious thinking that goes on in everybody's head. Like I don't think anybody that ever existed had a totally logical mind. There's always craziness running around everybody's mind. But I think there's this idea in at least Southern California. I don't even want to speak for entire America. I haven't been to those places, but that it is this like capitalist society and I need to work hard and I need to get this, but there's this idea where within that, once I get to this level, I'll be good and then I can worry about other things like charity and things like that. Mm-hmm. But it never works because as soon as I get to this level, I see this level and that this threshold always moves up. So I never end up doing any charity. Or my situation changes. Like now I have kids. So this gets bumped up, this gets bumped up. And we never get to this point where we're like thinking about other people as a priority. It doesn't matter what your situation is, do it. But it's always like, you know, I'm saving up to get that new car. Once I get that new car, then I can do this. Or I'm doing like, you always have this plan of this dream that you made up in your head. And sometimes it has to do with like, I don't think I'm successful until I'm here. And once I'm successful, then I can be nice to, or things like that, where I think you're tapping into an interesting idea where this is a good opportunity to have a lot of people sit and really think like, what is the point of me doing all this work to buy a bigger house? Or what is the point of me killing myself to go to work every day? Especially like now that I'm at home and it's like, now that I get to see my kids all the time and maybe even meet my kids.
Yeah.
Or relax and rest. I know there's a big push sometimes in situations where if you can keep someone psychologically defending themselves, like you're attacking them with all these stresses of bills and do this and do that, like that's one of the main reasons why people don't vote, because it's like they're so worried about other things that is not a concern to them, because it's like feeding my kids is way more important than voting. And they do this thing because they're stressed out, even if voting would highly contribute to feeding their kids. They don't see that because this is not an immediate need. They look more at immediate needs when they're more stressed out. And yeah, I think it could be a good opportunity to kind of reflect and not look at today only, not look at me only, not like be like, this is mine, that's yours, okay. So
Yeah, yeah, it's going to be, this is a really big moment. And it's funny because I so did not take it seriously in the beginning. I was like, what? Because I
That was
act,
kind of hard to take seriously.
well, I actively also avoid the news. Like, I
Yeah.
know it's not a good thing to say, but I mean, it's usually whatever leads. So I'm like, I don't want to hear. That's all negative. I don't want to hear it. And so when I finally, it was like I was at work one day, um, and we went from, oh, maybe I should get hand sanitizer to, okay, we're closing down the district. Everybody's knowing. And I was like, oh, this is for real, and not even paying attention. Everybody talking about toilet paper. I'm like, what is the? I don't get it. Like, what do they think the toilet paper is going to cure coronavirus? I don't get it. And they're like, no, you can be quarantined, because I hadn't heard anything. I had no idea what was going on in China or anything. And then going to the store and being like, oh damn, this is serious. Like, there seriously is no toilet paper. There's no this, there's no that, and seeing the panic. And yeah, and I think it was a couple weeks back. It was, what was it? Oh, Easter Sunday. And
Okay.
I was walking around and I was like, it was eerie how empty the streets were. Um,
Yeah.
how it was like there's just no commotion all the time. I even walked by, and it's probably been that way for a while, but a payphone, I was like, they still have those? But it was covered with like a bush that had overgrown, but I think it's actually been like that. I just noticed it because I've been doing walks now, because what else am I going to do? I'll do that. But I've been more active. And I saw it, but I'm like, how funny. That is such a poignant image for right now, is that all this technology, all this other stuff, or all this things that we usually are so, we can't disconnect from or whatever, and then seeing like, okay, nobody's here. There's always so much commotion. It's like, oh, now you can be with your thoughts. Or like, I don't know. It was just a weird moment in realizing this is history. Like, this is an actual, this was like 9/11. This was like the Spanish flu. I mean, it's not like, this is a historical moment, and I'm actually in it. It's weird because I don't think you,
Yeah.
you really get like, this is a big deal.
Yeah, it's like super surreal to click onto this moment, because like I think we all went to school and we all learned about history as a thing, and we read these like epic tales of like people sailing across the ocean and finding new continents. Like, that's so like mind blowing that you could do that. And then just shooting people and killing them and taking over, and it sounds like so like not realistic. It sounds like Star Wars. But then there's this moment in everybody's life when something happens and you're like, something like that is actually happening right now, and people in the future will read about this and go like, wow, that sounds crazy. Like,
Yeah, and that's what I mean. When I saw the phone like being like taken over by this bush, I was like, this is going to be one of those pictures that people look back on me like, this is how bad it got. Is that, the whole village was deserted, and plant life started taking over. Because there was actually a story I read about the UK that these goats came down into the town because nobody was walking around anymore. And I was like, that's so funny how quickly
yeah,
nature just took over. If we just stop being all upon everything, how quickly will we get erased? But also just like, this is a history book moment. Like, they're gonna have these pictures, and I'm gonna be able to look back and be like, I was there. It didn't feel historical at the moment I lived through it, but this is really happening. Because I don't think anybody who was, I mean, obviously when they're in wars, they realize the war is there, but I don't know. It like you said, you look at the history books and it looks like a fairy tale. Like you're watching a movie, and you have to suspend your disbelief to get into the movie, but you realize those are costumes. Those people, you have absolutely no idea how they actually dress. We're just kind of guessing based on what we found, but we don't really know. And this was like, I really know how that was because I was really there.
yeah. There's a podcast that I listen to called Hardcore History,
Uh-huh.
and this guy Dan Carlin, he makes like 4 5 hour podcasts, and each podcast it'll be like part 1 of 5 on this one topic, and each podcast is like 4 hours, so you get like this 20-hour thing about like World War II or something like that. And one of the reasons I like it so much, aside from that it's like great to listen to in traffic because it never ends, is he does all this work to not just tell you what happened, but he tries to get you to understand how the people were in that moment. Because if you don't understand their traditions and their reasoning and how they think, and you got to understand, they didn't have text messages back then. They couldn't just ping, 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 ping information. They had to make decisions with no information. And like, he really tries to put you on the ground in the trenches and get you to see how they lived. It makes it so much more, I think, like a human experience rather than you read the textbook. These people came over in this year and did this, and then it was done.
Yeah, not the facts, but more the experience. Yeah, yeah. I was actually reading this. It was a different perspective of the Cinderella story, so told by the stepmother. Right? Because nobody ever knows what happened with, Cinderella's. She was just this horrible stepmother, right? But she's just this horrible woman, and nobody knows why she's horrible. I mean, she's just born horrible, right? And it's talking about what she went through. So still set back in the past, but she was poor, and it wasn't poor like how we're poor now, and we have to get government assistance. No, there was no government assistance. Like
that's a big difference.
We're gonna send you somewhere else, or you gotta find somewhere else to live because I can't support you. So she had to go as a little 10-year-old to go work, like do physical labor, and washing clothes as a laundress. So not I gotta put clothes in the machine. No, you gotta like do this by hand and heat the stove up or whatever it was, the fire, and do all this. And I was thinking,
not with gain, with lie. The kind of stuff that made Ray Charles blind because he fell into a tub of it because he was washing clothes. Like,
yeah, and that's the thing, is that understanding like that it was so rough, and being able to appreciate, man, I have a fan, I have like electricity, I have a phone. And yeah, the human experience versus just, in 1970, this fact happened, or 1980, or, or 1770, 1944, 1492, they discovered the United States or whatever, but just the experience of it, and being able to put yourself there and then be like, whoa, that was rough, yo.
Yeah. And I heard this kind of like quote from James Baldwin, where he was talking about how he had this period in his life where like not everything was going well, and he felt like really low and really like he was going through a lot and he was struggling. And he was saying, the thing that helped me the most with my personal struggles was reading about history and understanding that other people went through struggles, and that what I was going through was not unique.
Mm-hmm.
Where I think sometimes when we ignore the plight of other people, or we focus on our own plight, we tend to say like, you don't understand. This is so bad. And it's only happening to me, and now I'm a victim, and now you get all this weird psychology. But if you go and read about what people had to go through, and you really understand, not just the facts, like you try and see what they were going through, because to your point, Cinderella might have had it pretty good. Somebody like back then, somebody was like, yeah, you can stay here as long as you do some chores. Here's a bed. Here's a roof. And back then it's like, you could have been killed and raped because it was nighttime.
Yeah. I mean, it's just silly things like, you could have gotten killed because a rat, or they had no hospitals back then. It was something just we don't realize what we have and where we're at.
Yeah, like baths were luxury items.
Mm-hmm.
Like poor people, if they got a bath twice a year, they were like, hey. Like what? And so
there was this somebody put it somewhere, I read it, and it made me think too, because I'm like, I'm fortunate that I work for school districts, so I'm still getting paid. I know that there are people who don't have that, and when I'm seeing the unemployment numbers, you keep hearing it, and it's like, whoa, that's high. But again, it doesn't resonate as deeply. But this one post that somebody said was, we're not all in this together. Some people are having vastly different experiences. We're all in the same storm, But somebody's got like a nice luxury ship and somebody's
Yeah.
got like a tugboat, you know? Like,
We're not all on the same boat, but we're in the same storm.
yeah, you know,
Yeah, I saw that one too.
that's true. And I don't know, it's just everybody's experiencing this differently. Some of us are, the similarities, obviously we all can't go out, we all have to wear the face mask, but then also seeing that and how that's becoming normal to see people with face masks on. Yeah, just how it's different to everybody, but the same. Yeah.
Yeah, there's common threads, but it's everybody has their own unique experience, and it's really been surreal because this has been such a good opportunity. I don't know if this resonates with you, but before this, I've been like making an effort to write letters to people and to call people and to like make human connections. I believe there's like a hierarchy of connection where like do face to face. If you can't do face to face, do a video chat. If you can't do that, call. If you can't do that, text. If you start at text, that's like very low. And so I try to send letters and video chat and call people. But I would call people just to talk. Like, you're my friend. I'll call you, see how you're doing. Let's talk. And they'd pick up the phone and be like, hey, Jordan, what's up? And I'd be like, oh, I just called the chat. And it's like, what's up with you? And they would always be like, or most of the time they'd be like, you just want to talk to me? Like, have a conversation? Oh. And I'd have to kind of like talk them off this cliff and convince them that I wasn't asking them for something, or I didn't want to like bare my soul because I just went through Harvard's like, no, I just want to talk. And I have found that in my generation, sometimes you have to like play this dance to get people to talk. You have to like set up an appointment and get some coffee and then have 20 minutes of chat about nothing. And then like you have to do all these things and you can't just like call somebody. But since this has happened, it's been so easy to like pick up the phone and be like, hey, person I haven't talked to in a while, how are you doing? And then have a real conversation for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, there's this like magic force or something that happens in regular society that makes it hard. There's this invisible barrier, but this has somehow broken that, hopefully. And it's much easier to talk to people. Or it feels easier. Maybe it was always the same amount of easy.
Well, I think because again, our lives were so full with chasing whatever thing it was, or whatever ideals, goals that we had. But now we're starting to see how important that human connection is, having people around. Now that you can't really just sit with somebody, you know, and talk to them and see them in person. I mean, this is, you know, Zoom and all that. It's a nice, you know, I guess halfway point, but to be able to, in somebody's company, there's still something that people are going to crave that, and we get to see like how important that is to just be with other people and to be able to see them, and to how necessary that is to us. Whereas we were so, like I said, focused on chasing whatever dream it was, we didn't give that any time because we kept putting it in the back burner. Oh, I'll text them later, or I'll text you real quick. I'll just text you, you know, because I'm busy doing this. And now it's like, well, you ain't busy no more. And now you realize I miss my friends, or I miss being able to talk to people, or just being around them.
Yeah. There's a concept that's it's like if I am attracted to somebody, there can be like I'm attracted to you, but there's this other concept where I don't desire you, I desire for you to desire me. But it kind of plays out in real life, and it looks like I desire you because I'm doing all these things that look like, oh, I'm attracted to you, but really I want you to treat me like you're attracted to me. So I'm doing all these things to kind of create that relationship, even though I'm not really attracted to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes we can take for granted the things we have, or like I am totally able to sit down with you and have coffee or go to the beach with you or whatever, but I'm chasing my dreams, but I got to do this, but I got to do this, but I know I could do that. And I sometimes confuse these ideas where what's really important is to spend time with people, but because I don't have to, it's available and I don't have to, we call it, I think, taking for granted.
Mm-hmm.
But you can only do that when you actually can ignore it and it's still available.
Mm-hmm.
But once it's not available, you can't like put mental loopholes in your head to say like, I'll do it later. You're like, no, I can't do it later. And also because of what's going on, you might be dead tomorrow.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, there's immediacy to certain things. Yeah, definitely. The other thing I've noticed, again, on my myriad of walks,
That's good.
walks that I go on, is how everybody's like, oh, good morning, good morning. Like, oh my God, it's another person. It's a person who's out here. They're just so excited to see somebody who isn't the person that they live with, or whoever they have, the three faces that they see all the time. Because again, people crave that, just not novelty, but just different people, or just different, or just the interaction and that engagement, even if it's not true engagement, but just to see something different.
Yeah.
To see life around them.
I don't know. Are you a hiker at all?
Yeah, I was until they closed all the trails, but yeah.
Because like, I feel with hiking, people go out only to do that. Like, if you see someone walking in the city, like more often than not, they're walking because they have to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in the like capitalism, productivity kind of thing. But when you're hiking, you're kind of like, oh yeah, look, there's a bush over there. Oh yeah, look at this stream. And when I'm hiking, it's weird when someone doesn't say good morning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or stop and pet my dog, or start some random conversation about my boots or something like that. Like, and it's sometimes kind of daunting because sometimes I do just want to hike, and I have to pick a hike that's hard because I know people won't go, and then I can like be yeah. But like you're saying, like people are saying good morning when you walk by them, and maybe it's because they're out there to just be out there and experience. They're not out there because they have to be in order to fill this other goal, like to get somewhere. They're just out experiencing, and then they're like, oh, hey, now that I'm actually awake and looking around, there's a person here. Hey, good morning.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You do you normally like go out and walk a lot or hike a lot before?
I would hike, but I wouldn't really walk around as much because I had designated times to exercise that I had to be at work at a certain time. So now, because I don't have to be, I can just roll out of bed and bam, I'm at work. Now I have more time where I can just go out and go for a walk. But I didn't do that before. I had to fit everything into a schedule.
Yeah, the Tetris game of life. I was like arguing with my brother the other day because his schedule is a Microsoft Word document, and it bothers me a lot. What?
Is it bullet points or what? How is it?
Yeah, and color coding and bolding and stuff. And I'm just like, but I'm very like, I'm an engineer. I'm very like, this can be more efficient if you do it this way. If you transition to this system, I know it's going to hurt a little bit to learn something, but it's so much better. And like, that's me. And he's like, and it's like, there's no grid. It's just like the next thing is on the next line. And so he just has this list of things and then times and dates. And I don't know how he can manage it because it's only on his laptop and it doesn't alert him to anything, but like, it works for him. And it's just interesting how it's like sometimes you see stuff or you stop to smell the roses and you're like, at least for me in this situation, it's like, wow, I'm kind of obsessive compulsive about certain things, or I have this like need to do things. And if I'm not doing something, I'm like shaking, like I had too much coffee. And it gives me, it gives at least me kind of a chance to take a step back and look at my behavior because I'm on timeout, basically. I'm not allowed to do the behavior. And I'm like, does that even get me where I'm trying to go? Like, where am I even trying to go? Why am I doing it? And like, for me, it's been kind of good to think. And I think it's given a lot of people an opportunity to do this, but I can imagine that maybe has not been the best mental practice for people, because you can go into some dark places with like, oh my gosh, I've been wasting my whole life. Oh my, like that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. What was your, I can't think of what your question was now for this discussion.
Um, it was a topic. I'm not sure question kind of gets us to the right place, but it's strength and force. Strength versus force and resilience in COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
So talking about how humans or people are dealing with the pandemic as individuals, and how we are dealing with it as a collective, and then more into it like if we're here and we're doing fine in the society or whatever, or we think we're doing fine, and some outside force comes and puts pressure on us, what does that do to us? Does it make everything worse? Does it give us this opportunity to stand up and come together and be stronger? And then how are we struggling? How are we dealing with things and like getting through?
Well, it's interesting because I think that that's true in the, I found it in the workplace anyways, when you have like a common enemy, you guys seem to work together more as a team, right? And right now we have a common enemy. And I do see that there is more teamwork. There is more, like I said, care for your fellow man, like the making of the masks for all the healthcare workers, the understanding that, yeah, most of the people who are working in the plants and all that, the meat plant, packing plants, they're immigrants. Remember how y'all didn't like immigrants? Now they're immigrants who are having to do that. Or how the lady who cleaned your house, now all of a sudden you don't want her in there, and how she's impacted because she doesn't have health care. She can't get unemployment or something like that. Just, you know, and then how people are kind of like, well, I don't want to, I want to shop locally so I can help these people who now they can't have people in their restaurant. Just again, like I said, I think there is a lot of look out for your fellow man. There was a point where you're worried about yourself, but then you start to think, oh wow, these other people are impacted in this way and I'm not, and how can I help them? You know?
Yeah. I agree with that, and it's interesting. Like I work in aerospace, and I'm considered an essential service for whatever reason. And on top of that, I still have to physically go to work because we make things. Like you can't make things without being there. And aside from like the gym and restaurants and like my friends' houses being closed, like I still have to get up in the morning and go to work, and work is different. We all are spaced out. We all wear masks. We don't have meetings. We all do conference calls and stuff. But sometimes depending on your experience of a situation, it can make it very difficult to empathize with someone else's version of experience of the situation. And I have to sometimes like make an effort to be like, because for me, like I don't have to pay student loans right now. And there's like a lot of interest, like this arguably has benefited me aside from the fact I can't go to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be hard. I can see how it can be hard for people to look at this situation if it's helping them or if it doesn't impact them, and then be like, oh, I can see how it impacts you. Let me help you. But that may not seem real because it's not impacting me.
Mm-hmm.
Or vice versa. And like, I think the idea that we're getting in touch with each other and talking to each other and meeting people and being like more compassionate is really helping with our ability to put ourselves in other people's shoes, because we're encouraging each other to like talk to each other more. And I've been struggling with like trying to figure out if I should help and then how to help.
Mm-hmm.
Because since everybody's impacted so differently, like let's say I want to help. Okay, what am I capable of doing? How do I what are my skills? How can I help? And then who should I help? Should I help anybody that needs it? Should I focus on people who need more help? But if like I had this whole talk about with my friend who works in the CSU, how a lot of students that live on campus, but are not local, like they're from another country or they're from Florida or whatever, the campus shut down and they have no backup plan to like go home. They don't have money to go home. They don't have like money to have food, and maybe their job is shut down. And so they're like arguably starving in their dorm room. But they're not hospital workers risking their lives to go help people.
Mhm.
And like, I only have, like, hypothetically, I have $20 to help somebody. What do I do? Should I spend it on this or should I spend it on that? And so there's like, it brings up all these like kind of ethical considerations, in my mind at least, about should I help? What should I do? How should I do it? And even just the concept of me thinking more to be trying to understand people and trying to do these things. And it's like a big shift, at least for me. And I think that's something that's kind of like a prevalent issue.
Yeah. Well, I think too, the whole idea of what's essential and what's not essential, and how little we used to appreciate the people who are now essential, you know, because how much do we pay basketball players, right? Well, they're not playing anymore, but you need to go to the grocery store. And now if they weren't working, what would you do? And that dynamic now of, like I said, what's essential, what's not essential, and the jobs that people perform, and how, again, we take it for granted. I think that's what the big thing is, noticing all these things that we took for granted, and compassion, empathy. Yeah. I think that those are the biggest positives out of this experience, and creativity. You know.
Do you think for you there have been any like major paradigm shifts or behavior shifts in terms of like being empathetic or going out and like helping your fellow man or connecting with other humans?
Yeah, I think so.
That's kind of a big question also. That's very open-ended.
Well, because I'm thinking, like, the other day, I got my hair cut, right? Because don't tell anybody I got my hair cut, you know? But I wanted a haircut. Granted, it wasn't like a big, like, if I could have gone a lot longer without getting my hair cut, and the world wasn't going to end, you know? But I thought, you know, my hairstylist would benefit from me actually, you know, I told her I could prepay if you want. She's like, oh, you have an appointment coming up, you know, I'm doing haircuts at my home if you want to come over, you know? And I was like, yeah, if you're comfortable, then I can go, or I can just prepay it, and then when this is over. And she's like, no, but knowing that may not always be a choice, you know, like somebody offering a prepay and, you know, we'll go another time. But that they have to sacrifice their own health, their own safety, because they need that money. They rely upon a sale like that. And I don't have to do that. And like I said, I can be home and my hair goes all the way down, who cares? Because the work, I'm still being paid no matter what. But understanding that, like, she needs that, and being sensitive to the fact that that's, rather than, not everybody everybody liked the stimulus check that they got, I'm sure. But people, like you said, still have the pride of, I don't want to be dependent on everybody. I don't want to be getting a handout. I still want to do my craft. I still want to, you know, like, earn my keep, you know, and being sensitive to that, but also not taking advantage of, like, oh, great, I can get a cheaper haircut right now and trying to haggle them down. Like, nah, dude, don't do that. Like,
yeah.
But don't take advantage of the situation. Yeah. And I hope more people think about that too, because I know there was a lot of price gouging in the beginning. Well, not a lot of, but I should say there were. I know Gavin Newsom got really upset about that all the price gouging that was going on. People trying to take advantage, but then seeing, like, okay, you don't like when the store's overcharging you, but you're now trying to talk this person down from whatever they used to give you because, you know, they're desperate. That's that's not cool. Again, putting yourself in, having that compassion, empathy. So.
Yeah. And that's a really good point that you brought up about the people, maybe they're not essential workers, so they can't do their business in an official capacity, like in the regular way. But then we get into these other struggles where, like, I can't empathize because this isn't me, but there's this danger of spreading a virus and getting sick and possibly dying. But then there's also this danger of me not being able to work and getting money and then becoming homeless or not having food and all these kind of things. And certain people have to make these choices about, like, okay, well, what do I do now? Because my way of living has been interrupted, or I can't do it in the same way. And I want to be respectful. I want people to be alive. I want to kind of be safe, but I have to sacrifice my safety, I feel, because I don't have a safety net. Or I don't have a job that's willing to, like, pull out all these stops. And because I remember there was this big old meeting at work because isopropyl alcohol was sold out in the country, and we had to import isopropyl alcohol in order to, like, sanitize workspaces at this, like, high cost. And they were like, but we're going to do it because we need to stay in business, because we're making certain things that are, like, important to the government or whatever. And not everybody can do that. And not everybody, since we work directly with the government, they help us. They send us stuff where they're like, look, if you want to stay open, make sure you're doing this, 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 and this. We get emails that say, but, like, most businesses will not get that. And even if they do get that, you know, we're make $6-7 million every 4 months. And our ability to get isopropyl alcohol is way higher than the hair salon. And so, like, then there's even that kind of stuff. So, like, really appreciating the kind of people that support the community that we don't really notice and that are still risking a lot just so that we can keep going, or so that they can survive, that's still really, it's good to appreciate them and not lowball them.
Well, I'm wondering, you know, we're all having this, well, I don't know, all, I'm just saying, but, you know, we're having this moment, how long will the effects of that, how long will that compassion, that empathy, how long will that last?
That's an interesting question. Like I remember very clearly, I was in 5th grade when it happened, 9/11. And I was in 5th grade, so I was still kind of coming online to this racist concept and all this kind of stuff, where I would just think people were being mean or something, but they were being racist and things like that. But I remember very distinctly for about a week after 9/11, like, nobody was black, nobody was female, nobody was old, nobody was Muslim. We were Americans. And everybody, and it was this, like, are you okay, man? People were checking on each other. And it was very weird that for this small period of time, it seemed like everybody was equal. And then you could see it, like, even as a 5th grader, I could see it, like, fading back into, like, you don't have a college degree, so you matter less. This and this and this. But yeah, I wonder, this is a lot more drawn out of event than 9/11 kind of happened in one day. But maybe this could be a catalyst for change.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Wistfully, but I don't know. I think we'll revert back, which is sad, is what I think. But like I said, the common enemy. When you have a common enemy, you no longer see the differences between everybody else, because we have this one thing that we all need. That's the focus now. It's not, oh, I'm better than you or less than you or whatever on that. It's, we got to do this first. It's the Avengers. We're all the Avengers right now. Everybody's the Avengers, you know? But eventually Thanos will be.
I like how you think. Like, immediately to Avengers analogy. I feel like if this lasts long enough to become a normal, then it can have, like, significant impacts on our daily life. But as long as it stays like a special case situation and we're just waiting to go back to normal life, I feel like we're going to try to go back, but if there's going to become a point, if this lasts long enough, where people are like, this isn't special, this is just how things are now. And if that happens, when we're able to go outside, we're still going to have that. And it's like when you have a traumatic relationship and you break up, like that doesn't happen if you were going out with somebody for a week. Like at some point when it becomes normal, then if you end that relationship, then it's stuck, it's in you, and you have to deal with it. And I feel like if that happens with this, if this lasts long enough or is traumatic enough or whatever, that it kind of gets into people, then when we're done, like it's something that it has to internalize. But yeah, hopefully we survive and the world doesn't get half its population killed.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really interesting though. I remember watching the numbers on the cases and how it jumped so quickly, and I was like, whoa. And then I just stopped after a while. But have you started to feel, this is what I've started to feel lately since it's warming up? They're like, it's not a big deal. It's not really. I've been a little more lax, I've noticed, because today's my birthday.
And happy birthday.
Thank you. My family came over, and they all wear the face masks and everything. And earlier on in March, so my mother lives with me, and my parents aren't married anymore. But my dad comes over. They're like brother and sister. He comes over all the time and bugs her. So they always hang out. But my dad's very much a social butterfly. So when they started closing down all the stores, he was still going to whatever store was open. You know, even going to Home Depot if that was it, because he needed that just to see people. And he would go and visit people. And I was like, dude, like you guys are at risk. Both of you guys are at risk. You're 75, population. They're not sick, but you're the at-risk population. And whether you want to believe it or not, my dad doesn't want to believe it. And so I kind of had to be hard with him. Like, look, if you're going to continue to go out, then I can't have you come over. And he didn't like that, but today he came over, and whenever he's come over like a couple of times recently since the start, the weather warmed. And I always like, wash your hands, like a little kid, wash your hands, wash your hands, and then you come in. And when my sister's family came over, my two nephews, my brother-in-law, I didn't force them to go wash their hands. And I was like, I know he's going to get upset that I didn't make them do that. But I've been more lax. And when I would get groceries, oh my God, I would bleach everything, or like all the outside thing, I would wash everything with bleach and wash all my produce. And now I'm kind of like, it's good. I'm going to cook it. It's fine. It doesn't live down. We'll be good. And like I said, it's not normal, but I'm going back to the whole, it's not that bad. I don't know if it's because I'm not looking at the numbers anymore, or because it's hot outside. And people are getting more of the cabin fever now because the sun, it doesn't survive in the sun, but that doesn't mean it's still not there. Like, it hasn't gone anywhere. The virus is still there, but I am becoming more lax. Have you started to become more, were you super?
I feel like because of some of the jobs I've had, like that I need to wear PPE, and I've been trained on that kind of stuff, and it's like kind of internalized to me, where it's like, open the door with your foot. Like, that's just how I think. Some of the things I'm not lax or tense about. It's just like, that's how that just makes sense to me. But I have been noticing that I have to check myself on interactions with people where I want to go do something, and then like, stop. And I like, as time moves on, I get this thing where like, well, I don't know anybody that died. I don't know anybody that's sick. Like, maybe this isn't real. Sweden's fine when they do this. And like, you find all these things to like confirm your desires. But you have to like battle that with like, just because this is okay for this person, like just because this one person won the lottery doesn't mean I'm going to win the lottery. And that can be difficult sometimes. But I have been like setting rules and not doing certain things. And sometimes it's hard because like I feel like sometimes people need support or they need help, but I don't want to go over and give them help because I know I go to work and I deal with people all day. And I know I'm like a high risk person for giving other people sickness. So I'm like, I would really like to come over and support you or bring you something or whatever. But I don't feel like that I'm the person to do that because I run into people all day, every day. So there's a lot of struggles that go into that, I think, mentally for everybody for different reasons. And Miss Jennifer, this talk was designed to be an hour. And I'm like having a good conversation with you and I'm enjoying it, but I always feel like I should respect other people's time. Sometimes I don't do that, and then it'll be like 9 o'clock and half the people here will be like, So I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, I think I should wrap it because it is my birthday, so I'm gonna go and do my celebratory watching a movie.
Nice.
But it was, I enjoyed the talk. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Are you gonna have another one?
Yeah. Before quarantine, I did these once a month.
Mm-hmm.
And I also do workshops, which are a little different because I'm like teaching something and then we talk about it. But this, I think, is going to be first Saturdays. And I might do it twice a month, but for now, it's going to be like once a month.
Sounds good. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. And I'm curious, how did you find out about this?
I probably got a thing in, like, you know, when you get emails from Meetup.
Oh, okay, for Meetup, okay.
You, whatchamacallit, is here, and it was of interest, so I clicked.
Cool. Well, it was great talking to you. Have a
You.
happy birthday.
Thank you. Bye.
Cool. Have a good one.